get out your paddles.
Oh, you better believe that's a paddling.
And celebrate Jingles Day, because this episode has more twists than a f***ing roller coaster. Yes, episode 3 of American Horror Story 1984 is jam-packed with cool kills and new theories. So I'm gonna break down the episode and what it could mean for the season. You'll want to stick around till the very end for even more tinfoil hat conspiracies about Montana, Brooke, and the Night Stalker. So here we go. The episode begins right where we left off, with the Night Stalker trying to break down the door to the infirmary. We saw him last episode nearing his way to Ray, Chet, Brooke, and Rita, who have gone in search of the car keys so they can make their escape. The Night Stalker smashes his way through the window, which they quickly board up, when Ray has quite possibly the stupidest suggestion ever. The 4 of them split up, and the slowest will be the one who gets caught.
That's stupid.
But before a plan can be made, the Night Stalker bursts through the door and Ray gets caught in his way. Now here is where I caught something really weird. This is the shot of Ray right when the Night Stalker bursts down the door. Take note of his jacket. We then cut to the Night Stalker and then back to Ray, but look at his jacket now, covered in blood splatter. Now this could A, just be a simple mistake they made when filming, or B, if you believe the theory that they're all actors or that this is some sort of Groundhog Day that repeats over and over again, it could be another subtle hint that that's what we're watching. Ray gets the crap slashed out of him and is saved by Chet, who rams the Night Stalker into the window, and instead of finishing him off, they just kind of leave him there. Meanwhile, at the other camp, Montana and Trevor try to snap Xavier out of his shell shock while they believe Mr. Jingles is trying to make his way in. Now there's something interesting here too. Right before Jingles leaves, there's a sound of a motorcycle. But we can't be sure if this is from the 2 pranksters or someone else. The pranksters hurl a flaming bag of crap, but here's yet another weird editing, and I'm hesitant to say it, mistake. Check out this shot of the flaming poo taken from the season to come preview and compare it to the one that was shown this episode. One is clearly wearing a mask while the other is not. Is this just a mistake and they reshot it or digitally added in a mask? Who knows? But these little mistakes are starting to add up. The fun is short-lived as the 2 pranksters are viciously murdered by the real Mr. Jingles. Apparently it's customary for local kids to play pranks during Jingles Day, the anniversary of the Camp Redwood Massacre. Jingles cuts off one of the kids' ears as Trevor, Montana, and Xavier make a run for it. Brooke and Rita have split from Chet and Ray when we hear a scream coming from Chet and Ray's direction. They've fallen into a pit of spikes, and Chet seems to have gotten the worst of the 2. Now what's interesting about this is that it couldn't have been Jingles who set up this trap. He just got to Camp Redwood a few hours ago, so someone else must have riddled these woods with traps. My best guess is that this was Rita, as we'll later find out she's in cahoots with Jingles. Now this is another interesting scene. Jingles stumbles across one of the pranksters who we learn was brought into the prank because his mother paid the other kids. He doesn't have glasses, uses an inhaler, has reverence for Jingles, and just wants to be a badass for the night. Jingles lets him live. Now it could be because Jingles feels sorry for him or sees a bit of himself in this kid. Either way, it proves that there's more to Jingles than meets the eye. He doesn't simply kill everything that gets in his way. Ray tries to get the spike out of Chet's shoulder, but if he does, Chet will likely bleed to death. Chet thinks it was Jingles who dug the pit since it's a punji pit, a trap used by the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War, and we know Jingles used to fight in Nam. But if Rita is working with Jingles, it's possible that she could have learned about these traps through him. Brooke and Rita are waiting for the others when Brooke suggests they go and get help. Rita says,
"And leave everyone here to fend for themselves? Your friends wouldn't bail on you like that."
We know one who would. Rita gives her the keys, and in the first big twist of the season, she drugs Brooke before she can go, showing us that she's in league with Jingles, which we'll get into in a bit. After all, last episode we saw her confronted by him, but we never saw the actual fight. They were likely planning out the next steps. We find out a week ago that Rita is actually renowned psychologist Donna Chambers. So good, in fact, she was able to get new information out of such killers as Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. Also interesting interesting to note that John Carroll Lynch, the man who plays Jingles, also played Gacy in Season 7's Cult. Whereas Hopple believes some people are simply pure evil, Donna believes otherwise and is able to convince Hopple of letting her interview him. Donna meets with Jingles and is able to break through to him. Everyone has said he's an irredeemable monster, but Donna believes otherwise. External events, such as Vietnam, caused him to go crazy. If she can pinpoint what made him snap and what he did, she can maybe prevent future killings from happening. We also learn that Jingles never remembered killing those kids. That's very important, and it was actually the doctors who said he had this psychotic break, leaving the theory that it was Margaret who's the real killer still on the table. Rita's talk about trauma being a cause for serial killing could also correlate with characters like Brooke and Xavier who have had traumatic experiences in the past. Donna proposes an absolutely outrageous plan. She needs to witness Jingles in his natural habitat and helps him break out by providing him with his bag and knife. But when Jingles prods her as to why she'd do this, she simply says,
I have my reasons.
so don't count out that Donna has an ulterior motive for this entire operation. And here we have our first glimpse of the real Nurse Rita who we saw in the preview video. Donna is following her as they drive into Roy's gas station, the same one from episode 1. Rita suggests they convoy up and Donna says something very peculiar here.
If you ask me, all those murders are because of the availability of pornography and the objectification of women in our culture.
This is the second time she's mentioned how bad pornography is, and I can't help but think how in episode 1, Margaret ranted about how she fought alongside Charles Keating, an anti-pornographer who took on Larry Flynt. It makes me wonder if there is a deeper connection between Margaret and Donna. And this is exactly what I'd expect a gas station washroom to look like. Rita returns to find Donna missing, so she heads on over to Camp Redwood, only to find Rita in the back of her car. We flash forward to find that Rita isn't really a nurse, shocker, and that she gave Brooke horse tranquilizers. Speaking of people passed out, we have Chet, who doesn't seem to be doing too well. Ray thinks this is the perfect opportunity to get something off his chest, so he tells him his traumatic experience. Remember that trauma has been a big part of this season, but how the writers are going to wrap it all together thematically remains to be seen. We learn that Ray left LA because he was in trouble. During a hazing incident for his fraternity, Omega Psi, a new recruit, Chan, falls down the stairs and Ray believes he's dead. Instead of calling an ambulance and jeopardizing the future of the fraternity, Ray takes one for the team and throws Chan off a cliff. But Chan isn't dead. Ray tries to help him, but Chan rips off his watch. When Ray found out Chan's car had been found and his watch would be inside the car, he knew he had to get out of the city. This incident made Ray drop out of school and get a job at a hospital. We learned in episode 1 that Ray used to be an orderly, so it's possible he could have a connection to Jingles' asylum. Ray learns that Chet heard his entire story and decides to leave the guy who moments ago saved his life. This is not a great look for Ray this episode. Trevor, Montana, and Xavier argue about saving Margaret and Birdie. After all,
Chef Birdie is good people.
Hiding in the boathouse, they find Rita. Remember, it was Donna who drugged her, not Jingles, so we can deduce that Donna isn't a murderer. She's merely setting up things for Jingles to finish off later, which is exactly what he does. Again, I could totally be looking too deep into things, but my eyes were drawn to this locket, and I'm wondering if it were to be opened, if there would be a picture of her and any of the other characters. Ray runs into Xavier, Trevor, and Montana and lies to them about how he lost Chet. They tell him that Rita isn't the real Rita, and Ray argues with them about going back to save Margaret and Birdie. Trevor gives him his motorcycle keys and tells him to go to the call box to call the police. But now that we know Ray is likely wanted by the police, and earlier this episode said every man for himself, my guess is that he'd never call the police anyway. Montana goes with Ray as well, and this also makes sense because earlier she argued against going back to look for Margaret and Birdie. Jingles is alerted to the sound of Chet, but it's a fake out. Xavier and Trevor help him out, and they learn the truth, that Ray left Chet to die. Trevor musters his big dick energy and throws who he thinks is Jingles into the pit, but it's actually our inhaler guy we met earlier in the episode. But what I think is most interesting is the absence of this shot, which we saw in the season to come trailer. We have Jingles pouring gasoline into the pit with Ray. Now this could mean a few things. A, that this is something we'll see in the future. B, it's a total fake out just to throw us off, but usually a show wouldn't go through the lengths of shooting this just for a quick 1-second shot in a trailer. Or C, that we're going to eventually deal with multiple timelines, that will come back to Camp Redwood somehow and the characters will go through the same night but different things will happen. Ray and Montana make a run for the parking lot, but as soon as they're confronted by the Night Stalker, Ray takes the motorcycle, leaving Montana in the dust. But he finally gets what's coming to him as Mr. Jingles decapitates him. But before he dies, Ray says what I think is the most important line in the entire episode. Quote, "Suck a nut, Camp Redwood. See you in another life." Now, we've already seen one character have multiple lives, the hitchhiker, and we previously discussed this shot of Ray in the pit with Mr. Jingles. Is it possible this night repeats over and over like some sort of Groundhog Day? The end of the episode leaves us with another huge twist, that Montana and the Night Stalker are lovers, ending with Montana asking why he hasn't, quote, "killed her yet." This her is likely referring to Brooke. After all, we already know the Night Stalker and Brooke have a history, but the history we've seen is from Brooke's perspective. What if that perspective isn't reliable? From this brief interaction, it seems Montana is the one pulling the strings. She's the one with the vendetta against Brooke. What if there's a more nefarious side to Brooke we haven't seen? One of the more curious shots we saw this season was in episode 1, where Brooke briefly shows us her jewelry box. Not only are there a few rings here, but later that night when the Night Stalker visits her, the first thing he asks for is her jewelry. The Night Stalker came into her house with the intention of finding this specific ring at the behest of Montana, which is the same exact ring we see in the wedding flashback in episode 2. This likely means there is some sort of connection between Montana, the ring, and Joseph Kavanaugh. Perhaps Montana was a jealous ex-lover or a family member hell-bent on revenge. We'll need to stay tuned to find out. This episode was nuts, and as always, I want to hear your theories in the comments below. Make sure to give the video a like and subscribe with the bell on to get the latest American Horror Story breakdowns. You can also find me on Twitter at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.